Clydesdale horses are massive animals, often growing to over 2,000 pounds. If allowed to roam freely, they're serving no particular purpose, and they may even trample or destroy a lot of your property. But if you harness the same animals and direct them with a higher power, in this case the human brain, you can pull a wagon loaded with people or supplies, or you could plow a large field and plant crops and feed your family and even the horses. Although the horses are physically powerful and self-willed, they can be destructive when they're simply allowed to do as they wish. As we say in the program, self-will run riot. But when guided by a higher power, the strength and will of these animals are channeled into actions that are very productive. So step 3 says, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. In the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions book, it says that practicing step 3 is like opening the door to which all appearances is still closed and locked. All we need is a key, and there is only one key, and it is called willingness. Once unlocked by willingness, the door opens almost by itself. When you align your will and the will of a higher power, your life can begin to change. But maybe you have a strong resistance to this whole concept. You could be terrified of God, angry with God, or maybe you don't even believe in God. Well, when you finally admit that you have a problem greater than yourself, then you may start to realize that you need a power greater than yourself to solve your problem. But in order to be willing to make a decision, to turn your will and your life over to the care of a higher power, it may require some serious rethinking about your ideas of what God is and what God does and doesn't do. If you don't believe in God, well, you can make a decision one day at a time to act as if there is a God. I mean, you can always change your mind and go back to the unbelief anytime you want to. Have you used the evidence of bad things happening to good people to turn you away from God? Has blaming God for these bad things served you well? Has it helped you with your addiction? Well, there's also just as much evidence that God is a loving God and will sustain you through whatever life brings and help you to get through life's problems. For years, I struggled with this issue myself. And it struck me that my God made this world, including the laws of nature, physics, and biology. These laws dictate all of the actions that occur on the planet. Sometimes the result of these laws is something good, and other times it's something bad. So I do not believe that God is making bad things happen to certain individuals or groups of people. The world was set in motion a very long time ago, and the natural forces on this planet determine much of what happens to us. But some of the bad things that happen to us are the result of things that we have brought on ourselves. You've made decisions and you've done things that have brought negative consequences as a direct result of your actions. Now, that's not God's fault. That's your fault. And the rest is simply the experience of living on this planet. For instance, I don't think God caused the Hurricane Katrina disaster. The laws of physics and nature determine when storms develop, and we humans are the ones that created a city called New Orleans that happened to be in the path of a natural occurrence. Even the inventions we create to make life better can also have negative consequences. 43,000 people died in car accidents this past year. God didn't cause that. Automobiles and humans caused it. And God didn't make you an addict. You did this on your own, so blaming God won't help you walk the road of recovery. So if I ask you to write down your idea of the perfect God, what do you think your ideas would be? Maybe that God would be good and wouldn't punish or cause bad things to happen to you or anyone else? Or that God would help you when you ask for it? that God wouldn't ask you to do anything that wasn't good for you? Well, why not just act as if God were like that? Can you do that? I mean, I'm suggesting that you act as if God were good, at least for a while, and see how it works. There's really very little risk because you can change your mind any day and go back to your previous ideas. And remember, your concept of your higher power doesn't have to be like anybody else's. So take a risk and make this decision to turn your will and your life over to your higher power, the one of your own choosing. Just by attending AA meetings, you're already displaying some willingness to turn your life over to the care, protection, and guidance of the 12-step program and the members of the program. That very act shows that you are willing to reconsider some of your ideas and possibly recognize that some of the ideas in the AA program may be better than your own. In his book, Find and Use Your Inner Power, Emmett Fox says this about the will of God. The most wonderful thing in the world is the will of God. The will of God for you at the present moment is something glorious and beautiful, thrillingly interesting and joyous, and in fact, far beyond anything that you could possibly sit down and wish for your own conscious mind. It is unfortunate that so many people seem to assume, as a matter of course, that the will of God for them is likely to be something dull or burdensome, if not positively repulsive. I suppose it is God's will for me, so I must put up with it, many people say when talking about some condition that they hate. Thy will be done, pious people say in the face of death or tragedy. All of this is absolutely wrong. The will of God for man is life, health, happiness, and true self-expression. And it is only in connection with these things that we can say, Thy will be done. Trouble or suffering of any kind does not come from God. The will of God for you is always something joyous and fine. Maybe you ask, how will God give me the strength not to drink or continue in my addiction? Well, the answer is simply by the willingness to let Him do it, by making the decision that your way doesn't work and God's way, which is the principles of the 12-step program, does work. You begin to feel a positive presence of God grow stronger within you as you adopt the principles of the program in your life. That is how you gain the strength to lead a sober life. It may be difficult in the beginning for you to see that the 12-step program is not just about giving up your addiction, but that it's a program about all aspects of living. It's perfectly natural to feel some resistance to this, but if you can at least admit that you need some course correction, then you have begun to open your mind at least to some new ideas. Ego and logic can be barriers to your spiritual growth and development. Think about it. When you rely on your intelligence alone, backed by your willpower, aren't you really playing God? Well, the end result of believing in total self-sufficiency is self-righteousness and tunnel vision. And this often leads to poor choices and bad results. The truth is, it is your own self-will that brought you to a place where you have to admit that alcohol or whatever your addiction is has defeated you. So don't try and analyze why the program works. Instead, focus on how it works and how you can apply it in your life, and you'll begin to see the results. It may feel like you're giving up your independence by agreeing to work the principles of this 12-step program, but the paradox is this: the more you depend on higher power, the more independent you become. So every day, right now, you depend on hundreds of people to give you the freedom to pursue your interest. You depend on power plants for electricity, oil companies to produce gasoline, farmers to grow food, clothing companies to make your clothing, and so on and so on. Do you really believe you possess the power and skills to provide all these things for yourself? So you already see that you depend on sources of power beyond yourself to make possible your current lifestyle. Well, if you can see how this is already happening in those areas of your life, maybe you'll be able to look forward to gaining independence by turning your will and your life over to this simple program and an ultimate source of power of your own choosing. I'm talking about turning everything over to your higher power. Your yesterday, your today, and your tomorrow. Your disappointments, fears, anger, resentments, and hopes and desires, your finances, relationships, and even your health. Now, that doesn't mean that you kick back and believe that God will run your life for you. It does mean, though, that you will receive guidance and direction and help. As the late Father Joseph Martin said, it may be true that your faith can move mountains, but bring a bulldozer with you. Or as I've heard it said, pray for a good crop, then pick up a hoe and get to work. So now, you may be able to say the Serenity Prayer and mean it. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. A good place to get a solid start on step 3 might be to say the 3rd step prayer that's found in the AA Big Book. You can say it with your sponsor. You can also say it by yourself every morning to start your day. God, I offer myself to you to build with me and to do with me as you will. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do your will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those that I would help through your power. Just like those Clydesdale horses, when you allow your higher power to guide and direct you in using your talents and abilities, you will see your life become very productive and positive again. So let's review. By now, you should have a sponsor that you talk with several times a week. You've asked your sponsor to teach you how to work the steps, and you're attending 12-step meetings several times a week. This is the formula to success. You absolutely must do these things if you want this program to work for you. And I believe that when you do, you'll begin to see that there's a higher power and it's beginning to work in your life.